Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. I am currently sitting in my bedroom where we are going to be setting up the nursery, and I'm sitting in my rocking chair, so we're gonna try my best not to rock too much in this video because it's just like a habit. I find myself like constantly trying to rock in it, so I'm gonna do my best not to do so. But I figured I would go ahead and make a video discussing my pregnancy up until this point, just because ever since I came out that I was pregnant, I had been meaning to sort of catalog what it's been like during this pregnancy, and I just haven't gotten to the chance to actually do so yet. So I figured I would take the liberty of doing so today while I have a moment to film a little bit. So as usual, I have a set of notes in front of me so that I can kind of keep myself on track because I go off on tangents all the time. So I figured it would be kind of fun to just kind of discuss what it's been like during the first trimester and where I'm at now and what second trimester kind of looked like and, you know, all of that. So starting from the first trimester, the first main component of my pregnancy was nausea. So with that nausea came exhaustion, and I have to just assume that it was because my body was trying to find a way to deal with the nausea, because unlike some women, I never actually ended up getting sick, which is a blessing, I know, but at the same time, it was one of those things where it was like I couldn't escape the nausea, and so I just felt horrible all the time. Pretty much from the moment I opened my eyes until I went to bed at night, I felt terrible. So I think with that, just trying to survive the day, it just made me feel so exhausted. So I often was like napping a lot and kind of sleeping off the nausea, you know, all of that. So they kind of go hand in hand. I feel like it's also because, you know, in the beginning of your pregnancy, it is kind of exhausting to grow a person. So it could also be partially because of that, but I do also feel like it was my body's way of coping with the nausea that I couldn't escape. So just along the same lines as the nausea is the food aversions. So I had pretty severe food aversions, I would have to say, because it was hard for me to actually find anything that sounded good for me to eat. I actually ended up losing probably around 9 to 10 pounds in the beginning of my pregnancy, just from the nausea and the lack of finding things to eat. And when I did find things to eat, it wasn't necessarily like sustainable enough for me to like maintain my weight, I suppose. My doctors weren't concerned, you know, it was like something that they see pretty frequently in pregnancies, and it just so happened to be that way for me. So I have a couple of things listed as the food aversions that I can think of off the top of my head that were like major food aversions. And the first one is meat, which I think that's a pretty typical thing in pregnancy. Is if you have food aversions, it's specifically usually to meat, because it's just like one of those things. I don't know. I feel like it's a pretty common thing. I was talking to a neighbor who was pregnant. She just actually had her baby, and she was talking to me about how with every single pregnancy she's ever had, she's always just had such a serious food aversion to meat. So I feel like it's a pretty typical one. But another one is coffee. And I remember that from being pregnant with my son, is that coffee, the smell and the thought just turned my stomach. I just couldn't handle it. And that was the same with this pregnancy. It was pretty extreme. I actually like put away all of our coffee pots and like put all of our coffee up and stuff, which luckily my husband's not a coffee person, so it was mostly just me who would drink it in the beginning, like before having the aversion. So he didn't mind having those things put away and out of sight, out of mind. So that worked out pretty well. Another thing, which is probably, my husband's like, oh, you're just being a princess, which he doesn't actually think that, he understands, but something that I noticed is having repeated meals, which, like I said, sounds so ridiculous, but like, let's say we made like a big pot of chili one night for dinner, and we're like, okay, like we'll make enough to have some to snack on like a few days later, or, you know, whatever. I couldn't do it. It was like once I ate it one time, I couldn't stomach the thought of doing it again like the following day or whatever. which, like I said, I don't know what that is. I've never been somebody who was like, oh, I don't eat leftovers or anything like that, because like, hello, like easiest part of easiest part of that is just not having to put on a whole like a charade to cook a meal, you know. So that was pretty just generally obnoxious. But another thing, and the last food aversion I have is just generally warm food. So if it was any kind of like hot meals of any kind, like pastas or just anything that would be like warm to the touch, it just did not sound good whatsoever, which might just be a me thing. I'm not really sure, but I know that whenever I like have an upset stomach or like have had the flu or, you know, whatever, I usually only want cold food anyways. So like maybe I was just predisposed to having that as a symptom, but either way, it was very true. I pretty much was having to go to the grocery store all the time and would just like find something in the cold food section that I would be able to eat, which was not convenient at all whatsoever. So that's that. Along the same line still, even still, is a sensitive sense of smell. And that was very extreme. Our stove is actually like an electronic stove top. So when you spill something on the burner, it smells up the whole entire house. And even if it's like water or just whatever, it like produces some sort of smell. And so the smell of that specifically was so extreme to me that I pretty much was told my husband, like, don't even plan on cooking for the next few months because I can't stomach the smell of our stove. So we actually don't have a microwave in our home. So not by like just like we just choose not to have one. So it was making it very hard on him to like make meals and stuff. Like I would have to like leave the house in order for him to cook a meal if that's what needed to be done. And it was just, it was extreme. I know that probably sounds extremely dramatic, but with how bad I felt, my husband like cooked a meal, my mom came over and she was like, oh my gosh, you're green. And I was like, I know, because I literally can't stand the smell of cooking food. It smells terrible to me. So very sensitive sense of smell. Another thing that I am kind of like ashamed to say, but it's still a symptom, so it is what it is moodiness. And I would have to say that I'm not a super moody person generally. I'm a pretty laid back person. I'm not somebody who like deals with frequent mood swings or like crabbiness, I would say, which like everybody has their moments obviously, but it's not part of my daily personality. And through this pregnancy, I realized that I am kind of almost hot-headed slightly, and it's nothing ever very extreme. I just like get frustrated pretty quickly with situations, and when having a toddler, like that's just part of life anyways, you know. It's like it's not always like happy go dandy all the time, you know. So I've just found myself getting like overwhelmed and frustrated faster than I typically would. So that is what it is. You know, all is still well in the world, but definitely a symptom that I was like, oh my. Even my husband was like, oh my. I was like, I know, I just have to like take myself out of the room for a minute. Either which way. So as far as food cravings go, I know that seems to be like a prominent thing that you hear people talk about during pregnancy. During my first trimester, this is all still first trimester. During my first trimester, I can't really say I had a whole lot of food cravings. Very seldom did I actually have any food cravings. It was more of like, okay, like actually I feel like I could eat that. It's more of what it felt like to me. So some of the things I have listed is potato salad. Probably one of the first few days that I started feeling very nauseous, I went to the grocery store and came home with a thing of potato salad, and I had that for breakfast because that just is what sounded good to me, which like I said goes along with the cold food area. I would have to say it's just one of those things where it was like it was cold and it just sounded good, so I ate it. So I don't know if you'd call that a food craving. It was just something that like I found myself not hating the thought of a couple different times during my first trimester. Another thing I have listed is a tomato and avocado with salt and pepper. So I would chop both of those two things up and sprinkle salt and pepper on top, and I would have that as a meal pretty frequently. I don't know if I would say frequently, actually. It was kind of just like, it was good for a few different times during the day. I also really enjoyed yogurt. It was usually in the morning. I would wake up and I'd be hungry because I probably didn't eat very much throughout the evening before. So I'd wake up and be hungry and I'd be like, oh, okay, that sounds good. I could eat that. And then I would either eat it and feel immediately sick, or I would feel okay and then want to eat it again. And then I was like, oh no, can't do it, can't eat it again. So it was those types of situations. Another thing I have listed is just fruit, which has still remained a major food craving, I guess what you could say. And it was specifically apples in the first trimester. I would walk into the grocery store and could immediately smell the apples, and I would just go over there and I would honestly look like probably like a ravaged dog and would just like sniff out which apples I thought I could smell, and the ones that smelled the best I would get, and sometimes that would be a meal for me because that's just what sounded good and smelled good. So that's kind of all I have listed for the first trimester. That whole trimester was a blur. There was so many times that I felt like my mental state was being pressed because of how sick I felt. There was times where I was probably moody, hungry, and exhausted from the nausea that I would be like texting my husband at work and be like, I'm so exhausted of being nauseous. I can't find anything to eat and I'm so hungry. And I was just like having a meltdown, like literally having a meltdown. So it is what it is. We're good now, but first trimester was a time. Moving on to second trimester, the nausea definitely subsided. Thank you, Jesus, because very extreme. And the exhaustion is kind of patchy. So I definitely don't feel like I need to like sleep the day away like I did in the very first trimester. But usually if like we get up and we take our dog for a walk and then we like do stuff around the house by like probably around anywhere between like noon and like 1:45, I like get hit with a wave of exhaustion and I pretty much just have to like lay down and close my eyes for like 30 minutes. Depending on the day. Some days it's not like that. Some days I'm like just on the go and I feel really good and that's just how it is. So like I said, very patchy, but definitely can be there sometimes. It just kind of depends. As far as the moodiness, it kind of still remains, as I had kind of said earlier. It's not anything that's like I said, it's not extreme, but like I said, it's like my patience are almost pretty thin these days. I just don't have as much like patience to like deal with things like a whole lot, you know. It's like when I say no, that means no, and like that's what I mean, kind of a situation. So it's more of like a lack of patience, maybe. I don't know. I'm definitely more comfortable this trimester. There was days that I would wake up and I'd like just be in my daily life and I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm pregnant. Like, oh yeah, I feel like I forgot I have a baby in there, I'm pregnant. So, which is a big turn for me because when I was pregnant with my son, I did not feel that way at all whatsoever. Which, on that same note, I've definitely thought about maybe making like a comparison video of what my pregnancy was like with my son versus what this pregnancy has been like, and like the differences between the two. Because what I will say is, with how vastly different the two have been, I was pretty confident that it was going to be a girl because of the differences between pregnancy. So if you're interested in like seeing a video like that, definitely leave me a comment down below, because I definitely feel like that would be something kind of fun to film. But if there's not a whole lot of interest in it, then like, I don't know, maybe I won't. But just on that same note, but as I was saying, very comfortable during the second trimester. Now that I'm starting to get bigger, I'm definitely you know, just getting bigger. So you just feel yourself getting bigger every single day. So it is what it is. My food cravings, I have wrote fruit very large on my paper because that's pretty much the only food craving that I can say I have. Still apples, but very much so watermelon. So since the seasons kind of changed from winter to spring to summer, pretty much all spring I was like chomping at the bit to get my hands on some watermelon. And I kept trying to buy them at the store and they weren't good enough. And I was like, man, like I can't wait to have a really good watermelon. Well, we've had lots of watermelons in our home and they haven't lasted long because they are exactly what sounds good to this pregnant woman right here. So another thing is I'm still not crazy about repeated meals. I can do it. It's not like my body's like completely repulsed like it was in the first trimester, but it still is one of those things that it's like, if I don't have to, I don't want to, but like I said, it's not that big of a deal. I'm being more of a princess than anything at this point, if I don't eat a repeated meal, you know what I mean? And as of recently, so as of yesterday, I am on record 24 weeks pregnant, but at my last doctor's appointment, I think I touched base on this a little bit. At my last doctor's appointment, they said that she's measuring a week bigger. So I've just been following the week bigger because I assume that that's probably not going to change. So technically I'm 24 weeks, but I'm measuring at 25 weeks. So I'm getting closer to the third trimester stage, and I definitely feel like I'm feeling nesty, which I don't know when they say that that actually like kicks in hormonally, you know, whatever. But as of the last like week or so, we have been like pretty much going through our entire home and just getting rid of all kinds of stuff that we don't need that's been sitting around and things like that. And it was like I couldn't get myself to turn it off and like rest. It was like I just like kept on and kept on. And after we were done doing all that, it was like then my brain was like, okay, let's clean. Let's like clean all the places yet you haven't thought to clean in like a while, you know, that kind of a thing. So definitely feeling a lot more, like I said, nesty. We aren't necessarily like nesting for her at this point yet. I mean, we're starting to get things for her, obviously, but it's not like we are like getting everything together at this very moment. It's still to come. It's all been a process. Like I said, we've been doing a little bit around the house to prepare for her coming into our home. But like I said, I don't know if you would call that nesting or not. I don't know when they say that nesting actually sets in, but it definitely doesn't feel like I have been feeling. It feels more like there's something more behind this. I don't know. That probably sounds really silly, but it is what it is. That's just how I feel. No regrets. That's how I feel. So I wanted to quickly touch base a little bit because I was going to vlog about it and decided to actually just really enjoy it, which I know I keep doing that with all my vacations and I really need to stop doing that. But I think this pregnancy just has me completely out of whack. But we recently just went on a baby moon. So if you follow me on Instagram, you probably had seen a couple of my stories. If you haven't, my Instagram handle is AprilWallace_fam. So if you want to see what our baby moon looked like, it was awesome, spectacular, like just everything that we would hope for out of a baby moon. It was lovely, the perfect little break before I hit the third trimester and we have another baby coming and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So it was lovely. We went to Destin and Fort Walton Beach, Florida. So it was beautiful. Such a great time. I made a Instagram highlight. So if you want to check that out, you can see kind of what our baby moon looked like. It was very nice. We enjoyed it. We had a great time. So if you're interested in that, give me either a follow on Instagram or just go ahead and check it out because it's there. Anyways, I think that's pretty much all that I have planned. So, like I said, if you're interested in seeing a video about my opposing gender predictions, like what my pregnancy was like with my son and what the pregnancy's been like with this little girl, and you like are interested in hearing about the differences between the two, definitely leave me a comment. And until next time, guys, I will see you then. Bye.